And now we move on to the last and final panel for the day, sponsorship trends in the fashion and accessory sector. And moderating this session is DC, Deepak Chaudhary, founder Event FAQs and Event Capital. Deepak co founded India's first event management school, EMDI, in the year 2002 and followed it up with India's first sports management school, IISM, in 2007. He then co founded Event FAQs, India's first B2B business publication for the event industry. In 2013, he went on to establish Event Capital, a live event intellectual property rights company with Lakshya Media Group, creating properties like Bollywood Music Project, India Bridal Fashion Week, and many more. Joining him on the panel, we have Namrata Thakkar, DGM PR and Communications, Bestseller India, Harsh Parashar, Head of Marketing, Clarks Shoes, Atul Rohan Garg, Head Marketing and E-Commerce, Baggett, and Akshay Agrawal, Head Digital Marketing, XYXS Apparels. Over to you, DC.
I think today's topic, very interesting one in the sponsorship domain. A lot of monies do get spent on luxury. Luxury money gets spent on fashion and accessories industry. Today, amongst our panelists, we have four renowned people who spend enough time in this industry, and we're going to hear them today. We're going to chat with them. What's happening in their lives now, what they are seeing sponsorship now in the next 6 to 12 months, and then what's the future for all of us. Let me welcome our first panelist, Namrata Thakkar. Namrata, hi.
So,
Namrata leads the PR and corporate communication at Bestseller, the group Bestseller Group India, and also leads the selected marketing for Selected. We have Akshay Agrawal. Hi, Akshay.
Hi, Deepak. Good evening.
Good evening. Akshay heads the marketing, digital marketing XYXX Apparels, and is an expert in data, technology, and performance marketing. Most importantly, everybody's talking about digital marketing now, and let's hear his views on that. We have Harsh Parashar. Harsh, hi.
Hi, everyone.
Harsh heads marketing at Clarks Shoes and is on a mission to create an indomitable lifestyle footwear brand. I think we're going to hear his experiences, his end views on sponsorship. And lastly, but not the least, we have Atul Garg.
Hi.
Hi, Atul. Heads marketing and e-commerce at Baggett. Also leads the CSR efforts of the company. And I think we will need to know, or we will have your views on CSR also, Atul, today. So, guys, I had to get started with my first question, and it's an obvious question in the flow. How has the global pandemic affected your brand and marketing spends, and differences in percentage terms on pre-COVID and post-COVID marketing budgets? I think you want to get started.
sure. So, there's absolutely no hiding away from the fact that the whole COVID situation has had a very, very renounced impact on the entire fashion retail sector, automatically on our marketing spends as well. However, we as fashion brands, who are communicating with the youth day on day, while we feel that it has slightly shifted from, say, traditionally advertising in newspapers and hoardings, I think it has now moved to more organic, conversational, brand engagement led marketing activities. So yeah, yes, of course, there has been like a shift in marketing spends, and that there's a considerable cutback on the spends as well. However, that not mean that, as marketers, we still ought to be very, very relevant with our TG. So we are doing everything in our capacity to try and use digital mediums to ensure that the brand connectivity and the organic brand conversations are still alive.
Akshay, you want to come in?
So pre-COVID, the the marketing spends as well as the advertising spends revolved majorly around, as Namrata rightly pointed out, a lot of advertising around TVs as well as print as well as hoardings. But post COVID, what we've realized that we do not, number one, have the luxury of the marketing dollars as we used to have before. So there is definitely a considerable cutback on the spends. Number one. Second, now the objective of spends is not just brand awareness. Now the objective of the spends is to remain relevant to the audiences that who we want to speak out to, who we want to reach out to, and at the very same time, we also need to be cognizant of the fact that the user has their behavior is also confined and changing. So as marketers, as advertisers, as brands, how are we adapting to the changing user behavior? So to give you a sense, increased digital spending of the time of the user that has led to brands adopting or trying out digital mediums for the first time. Sometimes a lot of larger brands are now taking digitals also seriously. So that is a result of COVID. So I think we are definitely in the longer haul. We need to all be sure of the fact that this is going to be the new normal. So that's how we will sort of take it one day at a time.
Harsh, you want to come with the opening comments on this same thing, I think.
I think, it's a no-brainer, and I think for organizations big or small alike, the way this, I would call it and it clearly qualifies in some ways being a black swan event. I mean, some of the events that we've seen in the past, the rise of the internet age, the attacks in the US. So similarly, I think every black swan event has its three typical characteristics. One is, of course, it can never be predicted. I mean, as Nassim Nicholas Taleb says in his book, The Black Swan. Second is, it is rare, of course, and has a great impact on the humanity and the way things work. And thirdly, when this gets over, in the retrospect, people think and feel that, it would have been predicted. So that is the kind of impact that any kind of such event creates. And in terms of the brand marketing spends, I think it goes without saying, with the retail shutdown, the two industries that COVID has impacted drastically is retail and tourism. It's a nearly deadly blow to them. I mean, with supply chain shutting down, with the front end of the retail shutting down, the revenues are plummeted. And so, of course, the first, and in any such crisis, we all know as marketers, the X falls on marketing first. Because, of course, all the hygienic activities remain to be agile and be continued to foresee or to, meet the demands once the, market rebounds. So hence, of course, I mean, as marketers, our budgets have also drastically cut to the tune of more than 50%. But then it was the need of the hour. And of course, the remaining ones have to be very, very judiciously spent going forward for the next season or the second half of the year, wherein, of course, it has to have a very, very sharp prioritization in terms of agility of changing our plans, in terms of the most critical needs for an organization, and the ways we have been, reaching out to the people and the consumers in general. So of course the hygiene means, refreshing the windows, but then, having a sharper targeting, what and where do we spend? And one of the spends that I think the prioritization goes there is rather than acquiring new customers, I think everybody here on the panel would agree to me with that, instead of getting or acquiring new customers, it is more important and it is imperative, in fact, to have a retention marketing strategy in place so that, we go out to the customers who've had the feeler of us, and we can, reach out to them saying, come back to us, and you've patronized us in the past, and why not in the future? And we all need it.
Atul, you want to come in just for opening notes?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on board. Deepak, I'm very apt question. We have walked into unknown. I think what is important from whether it's marketing or any other domain within the organization, we need to start having plan B and plan C. Plan C is my belief because finally, whatever we are trying to execute today, whether it's spending the marketing dollars, whether it's new acquisitions, or we are looking at retention, from what Harsh was mentioning out there, a lot of things are going for a toss. At the end of the day, the marketing dollars being spent are directly connected to your top line. What I'm looking at clearly is the agility that needs to be brought in, not only for the next 6 months or rather 2 quarters, it needs to be for the next 2 years. Because economy is not just slowing down, it's negative. We'll see the impacts as we move forward. I think the larger piece that is getting built up today within marketing at every channel, yeah, and I mean it every channel, is the attribution models. We have to relook at the consumer journeys. We have to start looking at the attribution models, whether they are direct, whether they are indirect, for both new acquisitions as well as for the retention in terms of creating conversations and in terms of conversions, which means the spends on the brand equity needs to dramatically go down now, which we're already doing, but a large focus on the sale has to come in, wherein the collaboration of both online offline has to happen. And one of the common things that's happening today is creation of relevant content, and that is getting customized based on every channel which we are present on today and will be tomorrow. So those are broader impacts is the way I look at it.
So I wait. My next, actually, I'm going to drive another piece where what any of you has an IP, and does your brand own any intellectual property, and what's your take on long-term investment on IPs, self-owned or sponsored? I just want if Namrata, you want to come in, or Atul, you want to come again on that.
Yeah, sure, Deepak. So, for at bestseller with Jack and Jones, Veramoda only and Selected, we actually own our own IP of Super Saturday, which is, a 1 day flat 60% shopping event that we usually have in store, where we have people queuing up and like for a couple of kilometers, the queue starts at midnight, etc. So what we've done is this is the first time to adapt to the changing market scenario. We actually took that IP online and we just did our online Super Saturday. So yeah, and it would be safe to say that not only from an ROI or a sales perspective, but again, as Atul was also speaking, I would agree to that it is keeping us as brands, it is keeping us relevant with our target audience. It is driving conversations on our social media platforms. So the ROI is not just about sales, it is about being relevant to our brand TG. And just coming back to just ensuring that we retain the customers that we have. We also have another IP called All Star Jam, which used to be like a fortnightly music property at which would be held at our store, where we would get music talents from different genres, and they would come and perform together every fortnight in one of our stores. So we've tried to take that online as well on our Jack and Jones Instagram page, and we're seeing traction building on that as well.
No, okay. I'm going to come back in a different way to this question. I want to move to actually virtual events. The conversation too. Are brands ready to sponsor virtual events? Will brands look at virtual events as effective sponsorship opportunity?
Virtual events is definitely going to be something that brands are going to be looking at, because that's how we can reach out to a decent enough mass in terms of critical mass. So no longer is the luxury that we have of offline events. So the virtual events, or as we like to call it, the phygital events, is some sort of
I want to
physical evidence
spend a
the
little time
offline
on
space.
sponsorship. How we can get into sponsorship on that?
Sure. So brands are actually keen to take up sponsorships on relevant properties. Now, there are two key aspects here. One is the relevance to the TG that the brand wants to do. Basically, it has to marry with the brand's vision as well as the event. Whatever could be the event, it could be a music event, it could be a fashion event, it could be a sports event, it could be any kind of an event. The TG has to marry. If the TG is aligned, then the brand sees a lot more of fitment. And next thing that the brand also wants to try out is, Harsh and Atul have mentioned in the past that the marketing dollars are definitely cut. The agility in terms of trying to try a new particular avenue. So there has to be a lot more of proof of concept you can try out in a smaller phase, try out in different formats. You could try out an Instagram live, you could try out a Zoom, you could try out a virtual gaming interstitial banner in the digital ecosystem. You can try different kinds of fits. So I'll just give you an example. Just a couple of days back, I was talking to a very established comic who's conducting his shows online through Zoom, and he sells his tickets via Insider, and his shows are absolutely going houseful. So he's selling about 200 odd tickets, and he does about 5 odd shows every week. And his property as well as an event came to us for a relevant sponsorship deal, and we are actually actively pursuing that because we find that the TG is absolutely irrelevant to the kind of brand that we are doing, number one. And we definitely want to try out something because unless and until you give a couple of things, shots in, probably smaller cohorts, you'll never be able to realize what is it that you can eventually make out of these events. So I think sponsorships are definitely going to take a hit, but these sponsorships will also have to be relooked from a different lens.
Okay. Harsh, you want to jump in?
So, answering the first part of the question, it's not really answering, are the brands ready to sponsor virtual events? I think it's too early to say right now because this is one of the kind event that has happened with the humanity or all of us in our personal as well as professional lives. So I would remain at that for the first part. Time will only tell. But as I said in the opener, that two things, the physical events and the virtual events are going to coexist for sure in the future. Now, the second part, will the brands be interested or be looking at virtual events as an effective, sponsorship opportunity? Yes, why not? Because see, an event is an event, but the brands will be ready only if the audiences are ready. And when I say audiences are ready, means when the audiences are comfortable, when the audiences look at virtual events at par with the physical events. However, the virtual events cannot ever replace the ambience, the feel of a physical event of sponsorship and the kind of a physical connect or the networking that one can do, a brand can do with the audiences there. But however, virtual has digital as a tech has its own set of pros as compared to physical events. I mean, here in virtual events, you can do much more of engagement with the consumers or the right set of audience, as we call it, than a physical event.
And reaching
probably, probably you can integrate much more of your brand into a virtual event as you cannot in a physical event, because the digital and virtual surpasses the boundaries of a physical setup, is what I will say. And yes, definitely, why not? But yes, it is going to take a little bit of time, is my take on this.
Atul, I have a different question for you. This is
Sure.
And maybe Namrata, you come in after that. What's your take of sponsorship of live events post Corona? And do you think live experiences will never be the same again?
Okay, so live events are taking two forms now. One is they're getting virtual because there is more and more audience have started looking at those events in a virtual form, which means real-time telecast happening on any platform for that matter, and we are seeing that and influencers doing it. Second, as far as live events post-COVID will happen, for me, let me build up a context here. For me, COVID is divided into kind of three parts. One, what we are seeing today, what post any kind of vaccine that will come and the whole managing of it, wherein people will still be not comfortable to go on a live event. Third would be when the entire event is being taken care of and the vaccines have been administered. And I will go back to a word which is my third bucket, which is what Harsh had mentioned, that these are like black swans. One form or the other, they will keep coming back. What does that mean? That any event agency will have to have two platforms. One is live, real live, where people go and consume the live content, whatever. And second, it is available in the virtual format. Both of them have to be there consistently together. There is no way forward. And I want to add something to your previous question with, if you don't mind.
Yep.
For me, sponsoring of virtual events is technically divided into two. One is B2B and one is B2C.
Right.
For me, given the period I'm in for the next 1 to 2 years, B2B virtual events matter a lot because that's my business.
Necessity.
In one form or the other. That's a hygiene, that's a necessity. Now, how do I get integrated in that is a question which I need to see in, so to speak, the proposal. Is it product level? Is it at speaker level? Is it at branding level? I don't know. There could be much more today. That's the beauty. My second piece is my B2C level, because I'm already interacting with one of the vendors, that can I create B2C events, which means going back, I have something called a WOW weekend, which is like a small IP I have for my online platforms. Now over there, instead of just having a WOW weekend, can I, through my CRM and other kind of advertising, in given 2 days, call multiple people on a platform, and on that platform, which is driven by AI, can I do a 2-day event and give them a special peek towards the new set of collections that I'm launching?
Yeah.
So for me, that's how the world is divided, and therefore moving it forward.
Super.
If I'm making sense for you from that context.
That's Namrata, you want to put
Yeah,
your
sure, Deepak. So
Yeah.
see, answering your question about, how, whether, brands will still do live events, or, live events post COVID. I just really feel that, this entire COVID situation is a big bumper in our lives. However, things will go back to normal, and I just do not feel that no amount of virtual event, or any technologically powered event can replace the physical experience that you can get out of an event. That I don't think is, because as humans, we desire the social bonding. We are a social animal. We desire those physical experiences, and that is why, even if you compare that in our business lives, brick and mortar still exists even while online has seen such a huge boom, right? So purely from that point of view, I don't think it's going anywhere. uh, COVID is not the end of the world. We will rise again. And yeah, it's yes, probably right now we kind of have to hit pause and go back to, say, virtual avenues of interacting with the same TG that we would otherwise do on ground. But yeah, I just feel live events is
I
not.
agree with Namrata.
I want to second this. I really
Yeah.
desperately I'm waiting for live events. We do largest IPs. I think
And we are
really
seeing that in Europe. Actually, we are we are a Scandinavian brand at the end of the day, and we are seeing smaller events come to life in countries who are who are almost COVID free now. So there is hope. There's
yeah,
hope.
there is hope. That's what all we're living on. Akshay, if you want to come in on a question, what's your take on existing digital properties and which have sponsorship opportunities? If and if anybody wants to join other than Akshay after, on a digital properties particularly.
So there are a bunch of digital properties that I've come across, and these have been extremely startling revelations. One of them has been within the music genre, specifically on YouTube and other apps. What I've realized is the podcast as well as the webinar space. So this has been a completely new startling revelation that India was. I never assumed, and we never consumed podcasts as widely and as commonly as we would have done it pre-COVID. We never thought podcast would become such a big thing. To give you a sense now, there are so many podcasts which are coming up, and these are actively marketed by the players like a Spotify. A point in context is 22 Yarns with Gaurav Kapoor. It's a popular podcast around cricket. And then you have the younger TG also coming into a podcast by another, digital influencer called as Ranveer Allahabadia. So his podcast is again, subscribed by a lot, almost a quarter of a million people. So that tells you the revelation that, innovation was already there. It was just that COVID helped us to take it to the next level. So podcast is one thing that I realized that has an absolute infinite potential, and I don't see how, I see a lot of brands can jump onto it and create a lot of properties out of that. That's number one. Second, what I also am seeing is a lot of bite-sized content. It could be in the form of video, it could be in the form of audio, it could be in the form of blog or text, it could be in the form of visuals as well. So bite-sized content could be anything between 10 seconds to 30 seconds. This is another area where I'm seeing a lot of activity happening with the brand. Brands want to keep, because that has new attention from the user digitally. And in the digital context, if you're going to bore the then you lost the user. So be relevant in the time space that the user has to offer for you. So bite-sized content is something that I'm extremely bullish about. That's how, to give you a sense, TikTok's rise in India over the last 2-3 years, courtesy on the back of Jio and on the back of internet penetration in India, you've seen a phenomenal rise in TikTok. And keeping the politics aside, keeping the current state of the matters aside,
come back soon.
TikTok was definitely. Sorry?
I'm hoping it'll come back soon for all of us.
Yes. As marketers, we wanted to be back sooner than absolutely. As marketers, we wanted to be back sooner than anticipated. So I'm seeing these two as absolutely revelations, courtesy COVID, and I'm keen to wait and watch and just sit back and watch more formats get unearthed, and a lot of collaborations are happening between brands, and that's the third piece where I find it absolutely interesting. Two random brands can come and talk to each other together and try and amplify the reach simultaneously while keeping a mutual benefit out of it. So that's the third piece, which I think it's absolutely very, very interesting for anyone to watch out.
I want to actually put my last question, closing comments for all of you. I want you to really look at what is the suggestion to event agencies, what is the suggestion to IP owners, and what is the suggestion to media agencies. Okay, currently what they should do, how should they plan for next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. I think if you just put little light with your closing comments of one minute each, I think that'll be great for everybody. Harsh, you want to get started?
So my suggestion would be to not really get scuffled by what is happening and keep doing their work. But that does not mean I mean, we've seen it in the past. Sometimes you get the kind of ideas that nowhere gel well with the brand. And I think agencies who are our partners, and we see our agencies as a partners, and as partners, they need to understand the in and out of the brand, what our objectives are, what our long-term strategies are. And in that sense, they are better placed to talk to these publishers and the event agencies or the IP owners to tell them what the brand objectives are and provide solutions rather than sponsorships. You understand? I mean, it could be a smaller solution in a bigger setup, but that perfectly hits the right chords with the brand and the brand's objective of reaching out to the consumers. That would be my suggestion to them.
Atul?
Yeah. The context from which I look at is it's not about one property. It's about if I go for a brand rule, I need to see where if I ride on a property, I need to look at, I can tweak my message. Can I be authentic to my brand at any point of time? Because I understand my brand rather than riding on something wherein my brand messaging goes for a toss. There needs to be long-termishness. Even if we are hit by COVID, finally all of us will exist. the dynamics will change. My largest piece within that is that somewhere the attribution model needs to be built up, and a very relevant attribution model, and it can be indirect, which means what I got out of that event is going to be of extremely importance to me. That means a good analytics base, whether from a brand perspective, whether from a customer perspective, or any other relevant parameter that can be brought to the table. And why I'm saying that, because this kind of customer journey and model we are using across the board with different channels wherever we are, is something that the partner needs to bring in on the table. So I said the best learnings, and I said the relevancy, which is just beyond a little bit of conversation.
Great. Namrata?
No, actually, I just feel event agencies, they have a huge play even in the short term objectives that we have right now. Apart from just viewing it like, as they are our partners to our business. Like, just to give you a case and example, if an events agency just sent us a docket of having like a pop-up shop inside some really big societies all across the city, in about 7 or 8 cities. And we can totally work on a model with them, which is, which kind of wins them bread as well as us, So from that point of view, I just feel that I don't think that people should lose hope being in these kind of jobs or in this industry per se. There are a lot of innovative solutions that we can work together on, as Harsh was also rightly saying, as far as they marry the brand objective that there is at this point in time, which would be, driving conversations and sales pretty much for all of us on this panel. As far as we can achieve that, even through a very small backyard event, that's fine too. It does not have to be, let's call 5,000 people and, let's have like a concert. As far as we can drive that innovation, we should be home.
Completely. Akshay, you want to put few words?
Sure. So how I think agencies need to the game for agencies has actually changed. The agencies earlier were fighting between two different IPs or between different agencies or between different properties. Now actually fighting with digital, or they are now fighting with other marketing. Basically the same marketing dollars could be spent anywhere else. So the agencies now need to come on board and solve a particular problem for the brand. It could be, either they can solve bringing the audience, the relevant audience to the brand directly, or they can give unadulterated brand messaging delivery. They could do that. But now the IP owners or the agencies need to solve a particular problem for the brand. That's piece number one. Second, as Atul has mentioned, the relevance of audience metrics and measurement in terms of attributes, that's going to get even more critical. Earlier, around brand awareness, all of that was still, taken up. But now, no longer. Now, people want to know what is the delta that the brand or the IP is actually going to do. So that is how agencies now need to start molding the communication towards brand and towards managers. That, okay, this is delta is going to move. So if you're looking at, a property with small micro property, but do it, try smaller, but do it at scale. If you're able to do that and the opportunity to scale is there, that's when this, the entire the event line in the short term will definitely be successful. And the agencies also need to come back with a little bit idea into the mind that the brands have the kind of marketing dollars that they had in February. So the cost also need to be a little bit for real.
Thanks. Thank you, everybody. I think it's thank you, Atul, Harsh, Akshay, and Namrata. I think fantastic.
Thank you.
In a short time, I think we've put some points, I think, which are very useful. I will just say to close this is I think your smaller efforts to this ecosystem, I think, will keep this going, and I think we all need that on an ongoing basis. I think all the best to you, and we all come back soon with live events and more opportunities. We will need your support every time. Yeah. Thank you so much. Look forward to it.